Okay, thanks and welcome everybody to the COTA SA Climate Change webinar. My name is Miranda Starkey. I'm the Chief Executive here at COTA SA, Council on the Ageing South Australia. It's my pleasure to welcome you all, and I'd like to acknowledge that this webinar is being presented to you from Kaurna land. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. This is the fourth webinar that our climate change group has held, and we're very pleased to hold this one today with a little bit of a difference. Our climate change group is a subcommittee of our policy council, where we seek the views of a diverse range of older South Australians to help shape the policy and advocacy that COTA SA, as the peak body for older South Australians, takes to government and other organisations. And our goal is to obviously advance the rights, interests and futures of older people. There's 700,000 South Australians now over the age of 50, and we are here to make sure that that older people have an influential voice, that they're listened to, and that policies and life is made as good as possible for older people by listening to their needs and preferences. So the Climate Change Group has been very active for some years now to highlight not only that older people care about the environment and are absolutely active and proactive in campaigning for measures that can improve the environment, combat climate change, but at a individual level, what can older South Australians do to improve their impact, to reduce their impact on the environment, but also in their cost of living as well. And that's the focus of today's webinar, to look at some of our climate change group members and to hear from them as individuals about what they have done to have a go at improving, reducing their cost of living, reducing their energy consumption and emissions, and having a positive impact on climate and the environment. So we're going to hear from 6 presenters today, Miranda and Lester Valquist. We're going to hear from Andrew McNaughton and Peter Croft, John Miller, and also Barry Apsey. I'll let you know that this webinar is being recorded today. No one that's attending can be seen, or you're not visible on this webinar. You are very welcome, and we encourage you to submit questions via the Q&A chat at the bottom of the screen, and we will have plenty of time for each of the presenters to respond to your questions as they come up, as well as time at the end for any questions that you might still have. With that, I will start with Miranda and Lester Valquist on the screen. So Miranda is a member of our Policy Council and a member of our Climate Change Group. Miranda and Lester live in the hills, and they're going to talk about their experience tackling their energy consumption. So Miranda and Lester, over to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Miranda. First of all, I'd like to say that location does matter. Addressing climate change and your energy bills. In the hills, it can be 3 to 4 degrees colder, and in fact it has been. We have had up to a 12-degree difference. So it's important that you can get a grip on keeping warm in winter and as cool as possible in summer. It's all electric in the hills, and so some people have bottled gas. We prefer not to. So we have electricity, plus we have a slow combustion wood burner for special occasions when you have, there's our wee cottage on the screen now, well over 100 years old, 1861, our cottage, the year of the American Civil War. And so it's now been as climate proofed as we can make it. So we have planned ahead. We decided to spend initially so we can save money later. So investing in solar panels, and we have a battery so that our power bills can be controlled as our income reduces over time. So there's the little cottage, and I think there's another slide that shows all the solar panels and bits and pieces that are on the top now. So in the last 9 years, we have invested approximately $22,000. And we calculate that we have saved $35,000 on energy costs, including a reduction in firewood costs. We do buy a bit of firewood in winter just to have the joy of that fire on a winter's night. So it's cost us a bit of money, but we've saved more. And we have noticed in the hills, and everyone's in this position, that blackouts and outages seem to be increasing. So we have the battery to take care of that, at least initially. We've got a big freezer, and a lot of people do who are retired, and we don't really want to lose the food that's in that freezer. We buy a lot of our own vegetables and we harvest them and we freeze them. So keeping that store of food secure is important to us. So timeline of our journey, there's a little bit blurry, but you can see on the screen the panels there. In 2015, we had 16 solar panels installed, and I'd like to just make the point that we had them installed with a local reputable installer. We've heard some stories about people buying cheap Chinese-made solar panels, and if something goes wrong, you can end up in a pickle. So we couldn't have a battery then because we had a lot of big trees and it wasn't going to work for us. But in 2019, we installed a Tesla battery as part of the state government's virtual power plant project. We saved about half the cost. And the battery lives behind that clever green little fence that Esther made. The aim was to fill the battery every day and export the power that we didn't use. It's about 15 cents per kilowatt hour. So the panels do produce power on cloudy days. And so we've exported quite a bit of power. Our aim is to cover our power costs in winter using the credit that we accrue during summer by exporting power we don't need. Now, various things have happened on our property. We had all our big trees cut down, and because they got elm leaf beetle in them. And in 2023, we added another 16 solar panels, which gives us 32 solar panels. We did that because energy costs were going up steadily. Even though we were trying to keep ahead of the curve, things were still going up. So we're looking at it now, and we can see that from 2024, the cost of grid power to us has approximately doubled. Also, if you buy a little bit of firewood a year, last year firewood was $550 a tonne, as it should be. It's a rare resource. This year it was more. So we've really tried to keep ahead of the curve. You can see on that slide, perhaps Lester can explain that slide.
This is showing the Tesla app, which you can see on your phone. It's actually very useful. I get a bit obsessed with it, I suppose, sometimes. But it can be, with the battery, it can be a bit of a juggle because you want, if possible, to try and get the battery to get you through the evening. But in the winter, when you might have the reverse cycle air conditioning going, then it can get a bit tricky. You don't want to end up going back to the grid for any sort of substantial length of time. So this and there's lots of other things with the app where you can monitor what's going on. It's an incredibly friendly and useful app that Tesla had. So that's something to look at quite a few times a day, actually.
It's not alone. Other people do that. I'm not sure whether that government virtual power project is still.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think it is. So we were very fortunate to be able to get in on that. Yeah.
We've had our neighbours and other friends who saw the benefit of this scheme and also joined it several years ago when it was available, and they've all found it incredibly useful.
So we've learned a lot. It's been a surprise how much we've learned, but we don't regret starting on this journey, the solar and battery journey. It is saving its money, and as our little pot of money goes down inexorably as the years pass, then we hope our energy costs, instead of just rising and rising, will continue to be steady or drop. We'd like to pay no power bills at all in winter.
The app also, actually the solar panel app gives us an idea of how much carbon we've avoided producing, which is quite astonishing, really, when you look at it.
Yeah.
And it also tells you the equivalent number of trees that we would have planted to reduce the same amount of carbon, and that's quite substantial. It's talking hundreds of trees equivalent that we would have planted. And that's quite a useful overall. That just tells, that's from the battery, so it doesn't include what we had before the battery, but it does give a good idea of the proportion of the power that we are using.
So we see it as a win-win. We feel like we're doing our bit, trying to do our bit for the world to manage this climate crisis for everybody, and manage our finances as best we can. We are very aware that we do own this little cottage. It's a different situation if you're a renter, we know that. But for those of you who do own your own homes, it's definitely worth considering. I think that's about it for us.
Yeah.
Thank you, Miranda and Lester. If there are any questions from attendees, we'll just keep you there for just a second.
Sorry.
Miranda's already gone. If there are any questions from attendees, please feel free to put them in the Q&A now, and we can answer those for you. We've got a minute or so if any questions do come up. And so I've got a question for you, Miranda and Lester. So do you feel that your investment has already paid off? Do you feel like you've already recouped your energy savings, or are you still waiting to recover all that investment that you put in?
I think we've
Yes.
definitely covered the cost of that, which didn't expect it to come this soon, actually, but it's pretty hard to work out exactly what the savings are with prices of power and all sorts of factors. But it appears that we have well and truly paid for the investment we've made, plus now we're reaping the benefits.
It's definitely worth it financially.
And overall, for the last few years, it's balanced out over the year that we haven't ended up paying for electricity, and we do have hot water and everything.
Because I think it's we want to acknowledge that not everyone is going to be in a position to put money into energy efficient measures like that. But what I heard from your talk was that you made the conscious effort to put money in now so that you wouldn't have to in the future as your retirement savings were being used and diminished. So. Great.
Yeah. So well, perhaps just one other thing. Just with we're also trying to reduce the amount of firewood we use as for reasons of climate and so on. And we're gradually doing that too. And it's partly why we put in the second lot of panels to try and reduce our reliance on wood in winter.
One question from Tina on the chat for you. Tina says, I have 2 batteries and 20 panels, and my bill was $1,200 this winter. I'm so confused. My bill has always been just $100 or so dollars each, $1,000 each year. I've had solar panels for 5 years. I'm with Engie, and they say our panels are working fine. Any suggestions? Oh, sorry, $100 each year, Tina has said. So any suggestions for Tina?
It's got 20 panels.
20 panels.
So we've
20
got
panels and 2 batteries.
I think John might have some suggestions
later on. Yes. So later John will.
All right, great. So Tina,
the only thing that comes to mind is maybe she needs some more panels. I don't know. We've got 32.
20 is quite a lot.
20 is a lot. That's not good.
It could be.
Sounds like the bill's really spiked this year.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's doubled. I think the cost of power's doubled
Cost is
in the last 12 months. Yeah.
It's quite a feeding tariff.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll work on that.
Well, so Tina, we will get to your question, John, when he joins the discussion. We'll address that for you. Well, Miranda and Lester, thank you so much. I'll ask you to vacate the chair, and I'll introduce now Andrew McNaughton and Peter Croft Peter is the chair of our climate change group and member of our policy council. Peter lives in Metro Adelaide, and Andrew McNaughton. Andrew's another hills dweller like Marana and Lester, and they're going to talk about reducing energy costs and emissions, talking about their staged journeys to electrify their households. And we'll have time for Q&A as well. So over to you, Peter and Andrew. Thank you.
Thanks, Miranda, and thanks to Marana and Lester. Our journey follows. My wife Lynn and I have a place this time up at Belair, not as high as Mount Barker and not perhaps quite as cold, but we have some aspects of our journey in common. We've always been interested in ways to reduce our carbon footprint. We're keen campers, and we like to make sure we leave our campsite in better shape than when we arrived, and we're trying to do that with our part of the planet that we live on. If we have a look at chart 1, please, Kirstine, our journey towards carbon neutral has been spread over a few years. In 2011, we installed our first solar panels and we replaced an old water heater. In 2014-15, we put a concerted effort into our house in terms of reducing drafts, looking specifically at windows, doors, and interestingly, openings in the ceiling that you might not be aware of, where there are bathroom downlights, the hot downlights in the bathroom have a vents, as well as the exhaust fans in various parts of the house, maybe the kitchen. We could stand underneath the exhaust fan in the kitchen and feel the cold air just dropping through that opening in the ceiling. So they provided, we were able to put ducted ceiling fans in place so that there wasn't a direct opening up into the roof space. In 21-22, we had a serious renovation of the house, and we chose to put in double glazing in the areas that we were working in, and we upgraded our ceiling insulation to R5. We switched from a gas cooktop to an induction cooktop, and we replaced a very old air conditioner, a 20-year-old air conditioner, with a much newer model. So we were fortunate to be able to electrify most things. We do still use gas for water heating and a space heater in our lounge. So in this this year, 2024, we've actually put some additional solar panels, much like Marana and Lester's story. And our experience with the energy management system, Lester and Marana talked briefly to that in their conversation, but what we have found with our situation is that we can now very specifically see how much energy we're using at what time of day. And I've put two graphs on the screen here. I'm comparing the 4th of August to the 1st of September, and the brown shading on the 4th of August chart shows you how much energy we were drawing from the grid. But because I was able to look at when the energy was being consumed, I could establish which devices were using that energy. And we've made decisions about our lifestyle that have meant we've turned off those devices. There was a great big spike early in the morning when our reverse cycle air conditioner would come on. There were spikes in the evening when we had the reverse cycle air conditioner on. And so you can see that as we've been given information on our usage, we can now make decisions and modify our lifestyle to help reduce the cost, because those costs, the brown bars in that consumption chart, were very much cost to us at 44 cents a kilowatt hour. Thanks, Kirstine. The other dimension that we found is that we could then actually monitor how much energy we were producing as well as consuming. And this particular chart shows a month view of how much energy has been produced. And we were stunned to see that in 1 month, we have produced nearly 3/4 of a megawatt of energy from our house. And we have been able to see where that energy has been distributed to. three-quarters of, or about half of it, 48% has gone to the grid. 30% of that has gone to the battery that we installed, and 20% has been used by our house. So when we look at the consumption side of that chart, we can see that of the 477 kilowatts we've consumed, only 100 has come from the grid. So we've effectively reduced our grid consumption by three-quarters with the installation of the panels and the battery. So we feel, as Lester and Miranda pointed out, the amount of carbon that we're responsible for producing from an electricity generation point of view has dropped significantly, and we're well on our way to being carbon neutral. The next part of our journey is actually on to looking at an electric vehicle. We are producing a lot of energy that is being exported to the grid. We would like to actually store that energy for us to use at a later time, or for us to use in a vehicle. And so we've started our journey to look for an electric vehicle. But one of the requirements that we have is that the electric vehicle must be capable of what's called bidirectional charging, which means you can charge the vehicle, but then you can change the direction of that charge and use the energy stored in the vehicle to support electrical appliances in your home. We don't see many vehicles like that at the moment, and we're waiting for new models to be announced and released that I'm sure will respond to that perceived demand for that particular characteristic. So that's our story. I think from a South Australian point of view, I'm very proud of South Australia. You may or may not know that the Australian Energy Market Operator, or AEMO, has a website which presents a dashboard, and it shows you how much energy, renewable energy, is being produced by each of the states. On the left-hand side of this chart, you can see that in South Australia, over the last 24 hours, around 94% of our energy has come from solar or from wind.
It's amazing, isn't it?
And around 4 to 6% has come from natural gas. The comparison is on the right-hand side of the chart, the same 24-hour period. The big black bar represents the coal consumed by New South Wales. I've selected New South Wales as a comparison, but if you look right across on the right-hand side, you can see that wind amounts to about 17% and solar to about 13%. So they're looking at 30% in New South Wales, and of course hydro sitting at about 5% in the middle there. So about 35% of the New South Wales energy requirements are being met by renewables, whereas in South Australia, we're sitting at about 93, 94%. So I'm really proud of that. I'm glad that you don't often hear about that in the news, and it's a good news story. South Australia is punching well above its weight when it comes to renewable energy. And finally, the conversation usually leads to, well, what can I do? And I think here's a couple of resources that might be useful to you. The AEMO dashboard, there's a website there for the AEMO dashboard, and you can have a look and be amazed as I was. I've left a quote. A Solar Quotes company there's an independent guy based out of Brisbane who has a website called Solar Quotes, and he provides a lot of information across all of the topics, whether it's batteries or panels, whether you should go Chinese, whether you should go Australian, whether you should go European panels. A fabulous resource which is not trying to sell anything to you. It's just trying to provide information to you. And then finally, when you're taking a look at the things you can do around your home, not everybody is, I guess, able as I am. And so I found that the RAA has a facility where you can actually call them and ask for a tradesperson to come and assist with that particular service. So whether it's plugging up a hole in your ceiling or making your windows or doors draft-proof, perhaps give RAA Trade Assist a call if you don't have somebody in your family that you could use to do that. So that's our story.
So Andrew, there's a question. Can you please tell me what electricity you are with electricity suppliers, I need to find someone better than we have.
We were with Simply Energy. They've now changed to NG, and we are reasonably happy with them as an energy retailer. However, I think you will find that there is a strong competition between the energy retailers, and it's a matter of taking a look at the bill, and Barry's going to talk to bills later on in this webinar. But it's important to take a look at the energy retailer is obliged to provide on your bill a statement. If they believe that you can get a better rate, they're obliged to tell you what that rate is. We received that information from NG, and we let it roll for probably 3 months, or 3 bills rather, before we actually picked up the phone and called them and said, tell us about this new rate. And we were certainly able to reduce our per kilowatt charge from 62 cents per kilowatt hour down to 44 cents per kilowatt hour by switching plans. That's certainly something you need to look at very carefully.
Okay, over to me. First of all, thank you to Miranda and Lester, and also Andrew. I'll start off with the particular resource I recommend, and that's, I'll hold it up, it's Tim Forsey's book. It's on My Efficient Electric Home. It's available for about $25. Alternatively, if you go to Facebook, if you're on a Facebook group, type in My Efficient Electric Home, and you'll get to that particular group. And Tim Forsey is one of the major suppliers of info. He's an outstanding chap. He lives in a weatherboard home in cold Melbourne. So he talks about, I think he actually had the chance of moving to somewhere which was insulated and so forth. Has gone through a very similar process to what Andrew has done. So Kirstine, if I could just have a slide. I think our family has gone through a similar time frame and time slots to Andrew's. 2010, 2014, 2022 and 2025. So 2010 was the year I left paid work, so I had a bit of energy left. So got a diesel car because diesel was good. Found out later that wasn't so good. Put in a solar array, replaced much of the roof wiring. The house that we live in is 120 years old, so some of the roof wiring was not the best. We replaced the electricity meter, and we certainly put in lots of insulation. Come 2014, 15, first of all, to my chagrin, we found that, diesel wasn't so good, so got a petrol car. But that was the year that one of my children was getting married, so we had a big renovation place. And at the time of the renovation, we substantially upgraded the fuse box, put in lots of additional wiring, and basically made almost everything electric except at that stage the gas fire and the water heater. 2020, 22 was COVID time, and we were stuck at home. There were things that we could do, and so we launched into a lot more solar and put in a Tesla battery. And some of the things that Lester has said, and Andrew, it's truly fascinating. In fact, one of my children was staying with us recently from Brisbane, and Brisbaneites are used to somewhat warmer temperature. So they had a couple of the old oil-filled column heaters. I don't know if you remember those, and turned them on at night just to take the chill off. My goodness, they chew up the electricity. Our power usage, even though they weren't hot, they would just sort of chill off the air, doubled in that time. The other things that we had a shot at were putting in heat pumps. First a small one for a bedroom, and then a larger one for the rest of the house. I was originally a bit doubtful about heat pumps, when you see something which says 7.1 kilowatts, you think, crikey, this is going to chew up power like nothing on earth. But it uses a bit to start off with, and then it drops down once it's got into its rhythm. And so the average usage of that, once it's got to operating temperature, is probably about 0.7 of a kilowatt, not 7. But it really takes the chill off pretty much the whole of the rest of the house. And the other thing we did was to replace our instant gas heater with a reclaim electric hot water service and remove the gas. And once again, the Tesla app shows you, oh, there's that little bump. I didn't know how much it would chew up, but it's about 2 kilowatt hours per day. It's just a little bump in the mornings. And next year, 2025, I hope that we'll get an EV. We're not quite so concerned about the vehicle to grid or the both way movement of electricity. So we'll simply go for something smallish, and we'll get rid of our 10-year-old car. Now, Christine, I've got another slide. So some learnings. First of all, from our perspective, it's okay to only have a rough mud map of what you want to do. I know probably I should have sat down and thought it all through, but essentially what we did was to say, well, look, we want to head in the direction of electrifying things and less emissions. And as opportunities presented them, which turned out to be about every 4 to 5 years, we took a step. So 2014, the renovation took advantage. We're changing a lot of things. Let's change the appliances. 2022, COVID, and then next year. The second thing was moving to electric brings some unexpected benefits. We've already talked about batteries and tariffs, but it also helps your household ride through interruptions in power supply. I looked at my app yesterday, and since January the 1st, we've had 13 interruptions in our power supply. Longest one was 4 hours, second was 1 hour, most of the others just a minute or two. But what it means is your fridge is still going, your lights are still going. The only thing which wasn't going, I think, was the oven. So what? And the unexpected benefit also of changing to heat pump appliances, they are a lot more efficient than I'd expected. They talk about a 4-to-1 sort of ratio, much more expensive. You save money. Third thing is look at your energy prices from retailers, and Barry will talk about that a bit later on. It's definitely worthwhile. And I've mentioned at the start some useful resources. I do recommend the Facebook group and the handbook by Tim Forsey. I think they are. Most libraries have got them, but you can buy them for about $25. I just wonder, Andrew, any other points you'd like to make from your journey?
Yeah, sure. One that's really, I think, important from me and this. I live in the Mitcham Council, the City of Mitcham area. Mitcham Council has really grabbed this desire to be a solar city by both hands. And for people that they recognised that people were struggling to afford the upfront cost of putting panels and a battery on their property. And so they've worked with a company and have come up with an offer that enables you to pay this over time, which means that you actually use the proceeds, the amount of money that you save from reduced electricity bills, to actually pay off the battery and the panels, rather than having to invest $20,000 up front and then take that over time. So I know that Mitcham Council has run this for 3 years. They've had great success with it. They were looking at 900 residences in the Mitcham Council area have taken this up over the last 3 years. And Mitcham Council, because of the progressive nature of this, have also now convinced Charles Sturt Council, as well as Marion Council, as well as Campbelltown Council, to set up a similar relationship with this company. So if you're in any of those areas, you should expect to see that you will hear soon about this offer to put solar on the roof as well as batteries, and pay it off over time rather than have to pay it up front. So that's a bit of a plug for Mitcham Council, but it means people don't have to fret or worry about that big upfront cost.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Andrew. And while John joins us, I'll just mention that one of our next webinars will be on the question of buying solar, and we will be exploring the Mitcham experience, which has now been extended to several other councils in that webinar. Now, Catherine has also put in a question. Peter, I gather that you've got a VPP house. No, we're not on a virtual power plant house. We've simply installed our solar panels, installed the battery, and operating individually. Now, I'd like to introduce John. John is also from regional South Australia, and has helped a number of people get into solar. And I think you've got some learnings from that experience, John.
Yes, I have. Thank you, Peter. I lived in Sydney for close on 40 years, although originally from Adelaide. And I learned a lot in different projects in Sydney about energy saving, Sydney Opera House for one. And there are all sorts of things you can do. Some of them will cost you up front, but there'll be a definite payback period. And if that payback period can keep the accountants happy, it's definitely worth doing. And what I've found is that solar, even just panels, no battery, can pay for itself very quickly. I've probably arranged 40 to 50 solar installations since I've been in Victor Harbor. Some of those were in Victor Harbor, others Border Town, Gawler, inland from Port Pirie, and a whole range of different things. And half the time I've never met the end user. Just everything over the net and everything is wonderful. So everyone says, oh, Chinese panels. But actually, the vast majority of panels installed in solar systems are Chinese. It's a fact of life. Doesn't matter what it says on the sticker, and they'll still be manufactured in China. South Australia does have one local manufacturer, and they tend to price themselves out of a lot of projects, but it's unfortunate. The problem with Chinese panels is everyone says we are tier one manufacturers, but there are different versions of tier one. Some are very good, some are, sorry to say, not so good. Better to do your homework to find out and make sure you're getting one of the good tier one panels. When you get a solar quote, if the rep comes out and says, oh, this price is for today only, you have to sign up now or else tomorrow it's gone. Just let the rep know that, okay, tomorrow's fine by me. Because normally if you wait a couple of days, I'll say, oh, you haven't contacted us. Can we do any better for you? And the other thing is, most solar people that quote, and that includes people recommended by Solar Quotes. I've been involved with a couple of issues there. They always find some extras to add on afterwards. When you get a quote saying, are you prepared to guarantee that that is the final price I will pay? No more, no extras. If they won't sign that, say, well, what are you doing? you know, what's this price worth? Because so many installers will come around, oh, we had this and we didn't know about that. Therefore, we have to charge you so many extra dollars, $100, you know, a few $100, whatever. I remember one lady, she's a real woman clever, that's okay. I explained why she needed optimizers on part of her installation, which was going to cost her more money. Because she had a tree in that corner when the sun rose. And that meant she'd be in shade or partial shade. So optimizers, when the people come around to install it, oh, do you know what you're getting? Yep. Optimizers on that face, and everything else is fine. But so just getting a distraction here.
So we're just seeking if there are any questions that for you.
Yep. Okay then.
Sorry, keep going.
Yeah. So when she said, no, that's what I want on this face and on this face, all the panels up this end, so there's no shading from the central gable section. That was it. So they figure, oh, she knows what she's doing. That's what they did. And no hassles, no asking for any extra money because we didn't know about this. So that's the main thing. The other thing, Tina had a question about the electricity bill. Can you do a comparison of your usage between that quarter and that quarter a year ago? Because weather has been, I think a polite term is unusual of late. We had a very wet time since summer ago where we don't generate as much solar as we should have. Do your comparison of usage, and then, as has been suggested, your time of use, see track what happens when different appliances come on. Any electrical appliance, if it's direct online starters, which most are for domestic purposes, the real peak in usage comes when it starts. That's when it really, you know, hits your hip pocket. After that, it comes down to a steady state. If you have your air conditioning controls too close for on off, it'll cost you money because you'll be short cycling. It'll reach the limit and then turn off. Then a short time later, will also reach the other limit.
I know you're addressing Tina's question.
Yeah.
Tina, I think you were really concerned that despite doing all the right things, your electricity bills have just soared. We're happy to, if this answer hasn't covered all of your issues, to take it offline. At the end of the webinar, Miranda's going to give you some contact details for the group, and we can have a chat with you in more detail. It's certainly incredibly disappointing if you end up with trying to do the right thing, trying to manage your cost of living and energy, and unfortunately not getting there.
Yeah, that is, I know, I've had a similar situation with a friend of mine in Sydney. She suddenly gets this giant electricity bill, so we've now switched providers. And they've come back, oh no, you had your opportunity, you did nothing. Don't be afraid to switch providers. Not switching is often paying what's known as a lazy man's tax. But Tina, I'll be happy to talk with you after the webinar. We can chat by email or something, and we'll take it from there. But thank you very much for your time, and go solar. Thank you.
Thanks, John. And thank you. And while Barry is joining us, if you have any questions, please make sure you do put them on the chat. We'll be trying to tackle a bit more. But Tina, we've got your comment that you've got some more ideas now on what to do. But if you do want to pursue it, we'll be giving you an email address, or Miranda will be giving an email address, and you can certainly contact us. So Barry has had some personal experience in trying to understand bills and where to go. And this is not an enjoyable part of the time, is it, Barry?
No, it's not. And it's a very personal journey too. Everybody's journey is very, very different indeed, Peter. I think that most of us think about energy supply to our homes through a number of lenses, one of three lenses. There's the direct cost, which is obvious. There's a possible capital benefit for homes, and people thinking about, well, when are we going to sell? Are we going to have an investment for the future, which is going to be beneficial? And then thirdly, of course, improving the sustainable energy supplies for the benefit of the environment and the future of our grandkids, etc. So we think about this in different ways. And despite there's so much information out there, we often struggle with where to start with what is a very personal journey. And there are lots of variables. And these variables are going to depend upon everybody's home situation, their lifestyle, their resources, and their priorities. So there's no magic bullets. And I wouldn't pretend for 1 minute that I have sort of sorted out all these issues in the slightest. It's a journey. So I'll start with my experiences to date in my ongoing project, and we'll focus on the direct cost of usage, which can be considered, I think, from three perspectives, this direct cost. How do we minimise the use of energy? Number one, pretty obvious, but often ignored. Secondly, how do we get the best deal from energy plans? And thirdly, can we reduce the cost by replacing efficient electric appliances for gas ones? And we've had some discussion already about solar and gas and batteries. Now, confession time, I live in an old 1917 villa, which in the suburbs, which is double brick, northern facing, which helps with the sun in winter, and insulated. So I've got a few advantages there. But I do have gas hot water and heating, which are clearly more costly than the electric cooking and evaporative cooling, which I've got. And I do have 7 solar panels that have been there for a long period of time, about 15 years. So trying to work out the best way, to convert those costs is a significant exercise. So tips, first of all, minimising use of energy. And these are very broad, but worthwhile mentioning. Keep your blinds down at night in winter and during the day in summer. Don't turn on heating or cooling as a habit, but only when needed. It's amazing what a jumper in winter can do to save hours of heating. And don't dress for the beach when you're living in your house in winter. Now, these are pretty obvious things, but you'd be amazed how often people are pretty, in my fairly, frugal way, think that they actually heat in an inappropriate way. Don't turn up the temperature of heating beyond minimum needed to maintain a reasonably comfortable temperature inside. You don't have to be taking all your jumpers off, and so you don't turn it off, because every degree you turn it off is going to cost you a bucket, okay? So that's a critical issue. And don't leave your heating on if you're out of the home unless you've got a specific reason. Now, people may have specific reasons, but I think that most systems can heat up fairly quickly if, in fact, they are turned on appropriately. Evaporative cooling may not be for you. It doesn't work that well in humid conditions, but it is generally cheaper than reverse cycle. But again, that's the sort of South Australian judgment you've got to make about that. Best energy plan for you. Peter's already mentioned this in terms of how you get value out of your plans. Start by getting your bills out, and this is dead boring, I know, and seeing exactly what you use and over what period. Now, why do you need to do this? Because if you're going to go to an energy plan comparison site, the first thing they're going to do is to ask you to provide the data along the lines of what your usage is, over what period, and at what cost. so that you can compare. They can help you compare what plans might be useful. Now, I know I stress that again. People say that they don't read their bills, they're dead boring. But if you're going to sort of take an effective position on this, you have to do it. Go to a comparison website and get some quotes and see if you wish them, and see if some have energy efficiency ratings. So it's not just the cost, it's the ratings themselves. Some sites may not have as many as others, and I found that the federal government's Energy Made Easy site is a good site. And then you can get comparisons with your current plans and compare apples with apples. It's sometimes difficult to make sure you're lining up exactly what you can understand. And there's been a lot of technical confusion out there, certainly for me. You may then wish to go to your existing provider and ask what the best deal is. Andrew's already mentioned this. Now, I've got to say that loyalty to existing customers may not be high in their business strategy. I think it's very, very evident that many business models rely upon people rolling over their plans without actually picking up the phone and saying, well, look, I'm thinking of walking away from you. What's the best you can do? And you'll be amazed how, in fact, they will come back with enormous speed. And I've, in fact, done that. And I, in fact, was with one particular provider. I ended up staying with that provider because they could strip a significant amount of the sort of bills I had for both gas, for both energy in particular, but also for gas. Now, if you discover a better plan if someone comes to the door, I'd signed up with this particular company, and somebody came to the door and demonstrated on their laptop, I'd done quite a bit of work on this, and I'd signed up with the company, but they walked up to me and said, look, I can demonstrate to you that, in fact, this is a significant benefit. And I was quite impressed, and I was quite sceptical at first, but looked at it very, very quickly, and in fact was able to sign up on the spot. And you don't need, I understand that South Australia doesn't have cancellation of contracts. It doesn't cost you a lot of money to cancel your contracts. I'm not sure what the other states do, but I've been told that that is the case. So you can actually change. So there's no built-in loyalty in this business whatsoever. Okay. Now the harder bit, confession time. This is a work in progress for me, replacing gas with electrical appliances. Decisions will depend here on what suppliers and advisors talk about in terms of payback periods. There are plenty of sources of information to delve into these, and I'm still delving. In my situation, I've got 7 solar panels, which are very few today compared to what others had. But nevertheless, they give me good feed-in tariff and reduce my bills. But if I thought I needed to increase the number of panels to increase my electric appliances, I would lose the very generous 44 cents, which I currently receive from the government for a number of years out in the future. I was one of the lucky ones. I got in very early. What's actually happened is cost of panels have come down, but in fact, so have the tariffs. A trade-off. So you need to be aware of what you're doing. Also, my gas heating and hot water systems are not that old. Put in when gas was cheaper a few years ago. So calculations and trade-offs are necessary. Similar considerations re payback time with batteries. And how best to consider how changes could improve the value of your house if you own one. So how do I think the best way to find information about these trade-offs? You might in fact say, look, basically, I just want to do this for the environment, and I've got sufficient money to tackle this head on, and I'm going to stay in my house for a considerable period of time. But I would suggest that most people, even if in fact you really have got a very sound environmental position, that you need to know what the costs are. And that is in fact quite a tricky business, and you need quite a bit of, I certainly need quite a bit of assistance in terms of resources. Some of the favourite sites I've actually found very interesting. Energy Advisory Service is the South Australian Government Advisory Service. They've previously been involved with a webinar with us. Energy Made Easy is the federal government's comparison site. I found that to be very upfront and open. There are a host of commercial sites. If you just go and Google comparisons, you'll find a whole series of people out there who are providing comparisons and contexts for particular goods and services. But of course, they're going to be probably limited to the sorts of services which they've got a particular financial interest in, unlike some of the government sites. The Australian Energy Regulator has been mentioned, I think, by Andrew. The Essential Services Commission of South Australia has a wealth of information. And I found out recently that the South Australian government provides incentives through retailers who can specifically assist with the difficult task of estimating costs on changeovers. And there's a retailer energy productivity scheme, which is there are quite a number of sources of incentive you can actually get there. And in fact, this leads on to how do you best use these and delve into these particular areas of information. And that in itself could be the topic for another webinar, Peter. But I think I've covered some of those areas for my very imperfect journey.
I think all of our journeys are imperfect. Look, thanks everyone for your presentations. Now we do have one final question from Jacinta. Do you have recommendations for finding a solar provider installer regionally? I'm based in Mount Gambier, not sure where to start. I'm not sure we give you a response just here and now, but I think Miranda is going to give some contact details for the group, and if you email us, we'll be able to get back to you and have a chat. Over to you, Miranda.
Thanks very much, Peter, and thank you, Barry. Thanks to all of our speakers today from our climate change group at COTA SA. And thank you for everyone for attending this. We have got 2 more webinars planned from the climate change group, 2 more coming up, one on lowering the costs of solar and another one on electric vehicles, and that will include a battery backup for your home as well. So if you're not already on our e-news list, then please contact us so that we can keep you updated. We hope that you would like to know more about our climate change group. We have a lot of information from the group on our website, cotasa.org.au. You can find that under the policy and advocacy section, including our climate statement and all sorts of different submissions and consultation processes that the climate change group has contributed to. We like to take a climate in all approach to all of our policy work, and so we really do value the input of the climate change group and you who've attended today. So you can call us if you've got a question that wasn't answered today, and Jacinta, you had a question that we will get back to you on. You can phone our office on 8232 0422, or you can email us cotasa@cotasa.org.au. You can also do that through our website, as I mentioned. And if you like what COTA SA is doing, if you support the work that we do in lifting up the voices of older South Australians, fighting ageism and raising awareness of issues like climate change, then please think about becoming a member. It's now free to become a member of COTA SA, and we'd love to have you in our community. But thank you all for joining this session today, and we hope you have a great day. Thank you so much.